The Silent Vigil. Captain Sarah Mitchell watched the morning sun rise over New Geneva, the capital city of Haven's Rest. The colony world of Kepler 442 bits had been humanity's crown jewel for 15 years, home to 500,000 souls who had traveled 47 light-years to build something beautiful under alien skies. The city's crystal spires caught the orange light of their K-type star, casting rainbow patterns across the agricultural terraces that fed the colony. Today should have been a celebration. Ambassador Kalthar of the Zephyrian Alliance had arrived for the signing of the trade agreements that would bring prosperity to both species. The Zephyrians were tall, graceful beings with silver skin and large, dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. They had been humanity's first true friends among the stars, sharing technology and culture for over a decade. Sarah adjusted her dress uniform as she prepared for the ceremony. At 35, she had spent most of her adult life on Haven's Rest, rising through the ranks from a fresh lieutenant to commander of the colony's defense forces. The position had been largely ceremonial until recently. Haven's Rest was far from any conflict zones, protected by treaties and the goodwill of their alien neighbors. Dr. James Chen knocked on her office door, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of stress. As the colony's chief medical officer, James had worked alongside Zephyrian healers to develop treatments that could help both species. His research had earned respect throughout the Galactic Council, the loose confederation of species that governed interstellar relations. "Sarah, we need to talk," James said, closing the door behind him. "I've been analyzing the medical data the Zephyrians provided for today's ceremonies. Something doesn't match up." Sarah frowned. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The bioharmonic frequencies they've requested for the ceremonial chambers. They claim it's traditional, but these frequencies would disrupt our defensive grid's sensor arrays. Our shields would be blind for approximately 6 minutes during the ceremony." Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the colony. The peaceful morning was shattered by the sound every colonist had hoped never to hear. Sarah's communication device crackled to life. "All units, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," came the voice of Lieutenant Rodriguez from the orbital defense platform. "I count. Dear God, there are hundreds of them." Sarah and James rushed to the command center, where the main display showed a nightmare scenario. Sleek, dark vessels surrounded Haven's Rest, their design unlike anything in the databases. They weren't Zephyrian ships, but they used Zephyrian communication codes. "Incoming transmission," reported Sergeant Kim from Communications. "Put it through," Sarah ordered. The screen flickered, revealing a being Sarah had never seen before. It had multiple arms and compound eyes, its voice carrying through universal translators with chilling coldness. "Human colony Haven's Rest, you have violated the territorial expansion accords. Your presence threatens the stability of this sector. You have 1 hour to evacuate." "This is Captain Mitchell," Sarah responded. "Haven's Rest is a legally established colony recognized by the Galactic Council. We demand to speak with the Zephyrian representative." Ambassador Kalthar stepped into view on the transmission, but something was wrong with his usually warm expression. "I regret this necessity, Captain Mitchell. The Shadow Syndicate has made their position clear. Human expansion must be contained." The transmission ended. Sarah stared at the screen in disbelief. The Zephyrians, their trusted allies, had betrayed them. But there was no time for shock. The colony's 500,000 residents needed protection. "Raise shields and activate all defensive systems," Sarah commanded. But as James had predicted, the bioharmonic frequencies from the ceremony preparations interfered with their sensors. The shields flickered and failed. The attack began without further warning. Energy beams from the orbiting ships struck key infrastructure targets across the colony. The power grid, communication arrays, and transportation hubs were destroyed in the first minutes. Sarah watched helplessly as the city she had sworn to protect began to burn. "Evacuation protocols," she shouted over the chaos. "Get everyone to the underground shelters." Dr. Chen coordinated the medical response while Sarah organized the military personnel. They had less than 500 trained soldiers against an alien fleet of unknown size. The colony's defensive platforms returned fire, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. For 6 hours, the attack continued. When it finally ended, New Geneva was a smoking ruin. The crystal spires lay shattered, the agricultural terraces were scorched earth, and the orbital platforms were debris floating in space. Of the 500,000 colonists, barely 50,000 had survived in the deepest shelters. Sarah emerged from the command bunker to survey the devastation. Bodies lay scattered in the streets, humans who had simply been living their lives when death fell from the sky. Children who would never grow up, scientists whose research would never benefit humanity, farmers whose crops would never feed their families. But in the ruins, Sarah found something the attackers had not expected. The colony's quantum communication array, hidden in the Geological Survey Station, had survived. Dr. Chen worked frantically to establish contact with Earth. "This is Haven's Rest calling Earth Defense Command," Sarah transmitted. "Colony under attack. Massive casualties. Request immediate assistance." The response came 12 hours later. General Torres, head of Earth's Defense Command, appeared on the damaged screen. His weathered face showed controlled fury as Sarah briefed him on the attack. "Captain Mitchell, the Galactic Council is calling for restraint," Torres said. "They want a full investigation before any response. The Zephyrian government claims this was the action of rogue elements they couldn't control." "General, they murdered 450,000 civilians," Sarah replied. "They used our allies to get close enough to disable our defenses. This wasn't rogue elements. This was planned genocide." Torres nodded grimly. "I understand, Captain. But officially, Earth is cooperating with the Council's investigation. Unofficially," he paused, looking off-screen, "help is coming." Over the following days, rescue ships arrived to evacuate survivors. Sarah insisted on staying with a small team to investigate the attack. What they found in the wreckage changed everything. Dr. Chen discovered that the attackers had used weapons specifically designed to be lethal to human physiology. The energy frequencies had been calibrated to disrupt human cellular structures while leaving the colony's infrastructure mostly intact. This wasn't random violence or territorial dispute. This was systematic extermination. In the ruins of the Zephyrian embassy, Sarah found encrypted communications that Dr. Chen managed to decode. The messages revealed the truth about the Shadow Syndicate. It wasn't just one species acting alone. 7 different alien civilizations had formed a secret alliance with one goal: preventing human expansion into the galaxy. The communications detailed humanity's dangerous traits, their rapid technological advancement, their adaptability to different environments, their tendency to form alliances with other species, and their stubborn refusal to accept limits on their expansion. The Shadow Syndicate viewed humans as an eventual threat to their own territorial claims. Haven's Rest had been chosen as an example. The attack was meant to demonstrate that humans were vulnerable, that Earth's protection could not reach every colony. The message was clear: stay within your current borders or face extinction. But as Sarah transmitted this evidence back to Earth, she had no idea that her people were already preparing an answer. Across human space, a massive mobilization was taking place in secret. From the oldest colonies to the newest outposts, humanity was gathering its strength. The attack on Haven's Rest had been meant to show human weakness. Instead, it revealed something the Shadow Syndicate had not anticipated: the absolute unity of the human species when faced with extinction. Every civilian ship that could be armed volunteered. Every retired military officer returned to service. Every colony contributed what they could to a growing fleet. On the mining worlds of Kepler-62, massive cargo haulers were fitted with military-grade weaponry. In the research stations around Alpha Centauri, experimental technologies were rushed into production. From Earth's orbital shipyards to the automated factories of Mars, humanity's industrial might focused on a single purpose. Sarah didn't know it yet, but the survivors of Haven's Rest would not mourn alone. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military prowess. It was their refusal to let their family suffer without consequence. The Shadow Syndicate had expected Earth to protest through diplomatic channels, to accept the Galactic Council's call for restraint, to mourn quietly while seeking justice through proper procedures. They had studied human history and concluded that humans could be intimidated into submission if the cost was high enough. They were about to discover how catastrophically wrong they had been. When the sky belonged to humanity, 3 weeks after the attack on Haven's Rest, Fleet Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the TSS Retribution, watching as humanity's response to genocide took shape. The massive dreadnought was just one vessel in the largest military mobilization in human history, but it served as the command ship for what Earth's government had designated Operation Starfall. The official records would show that Earth was cooperating with the Galactic Council's investigation into the Haven's Rest tragedy. Diplomatic protests were filed through proper channels. Meetings were scheduled. Committees were formed. The aliens who had orchestrated the massacre believed that humanity was following the expected script of civilized species: outrage, investigation, negotiation, and eventual acceptance of the new reality. They were wrong. Admiral Stone had spent her career preparing for this moment, though she had hoped it would never come. At 52, she had risen through the ranks by understanding that humanity's survival in a galaxy full of potential threats required both diplomacy and the capacity for overwhelming force. The attack on Haven's Rest had proven that diplomacy alone was insufficient. "Admiral, final fleet reports are coming in," announced Commander Alex Rivera, her operations officer. Rivera was young for his rank, but he had been chosen for this mission because of his experience coordinating multi-colony operations. Today, he would help coordinate the largest human fleet ever assembled. "Display the numbers," Stone ordered. The main screen lit up with statistics that would have seemed impossible just a month earlier. 1.2 million vessels had answered the call. The fleet included everything from massive battlecruisers built in Earth's orbital yards to converted mining ships from the outer colonies. Luxury liners had been fitted with weapons systems. Research vessels carried experimental technologies. Even civilian cargo haulers had volunteered, their holds converted to carry fighters and supplies. But the true strength of the fleet wasn't in its numbers. It was in what it represented. Every human world had contributed. Every colony, every space station, every settlement had sent something to join the effort. The fleet included ships that had never seen combat, crewed by civilians who had left their peaceful lives to ensure that Haven's Rest would not be forgotten. "The Zephyrian government is requesting an immediate meeting," reported Lieutenant Commander Hayes from Communications. "They claim they want to prevent an escalation." Stone's expression hardened. "Tell them we're busy." They had their chance to act when they allowed the Shadow Syndicate to use their territory for the attack. The plan for Operation Starfall was elegant in its scope. Rather than striking a single target, humanity would demonstrate its reach by simultaneously attacking every world known to be connected to the Shadow Syndicate. 15 different star systems would see human ships arrive at precisely the same time, delivering a message that could not be ignored. But this wouldn't be a campaign of conquest. Each target had been carefully selected for its military or political significance to the Shadow Syndicate, while avoiding civilian populations wherever possible. The goal wasn't to become the galaxy's new oppressor. It was to ensure that no one would ever again mistake human restraint for weakness. Commander Rivera updated the tactical display. "All battle groups report ready, Admiral. Project Constellation is online." Project Constellation was humanity's secret weapon, developed over decades of peaceful expansion. Every human ship was equipped with quantum communication arrays that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. What appeared to be separate fleets scattered across the galaxy were actually a single, perfectly synchronized military instrument. The first targets were the Shadow Syndicate's forward bases in the Kepler 438 system. As human ships dropped out of hyperspace, The alien defenders found themselves facing a level of coordination they had never encountered. Fighters moved in perfect formation, while capital ships provided support with split-second timing. The bases surrendered within hours. Simultaneously, human forces struck the Syndicate's shipyards around Ta City. The converted mining vessels proved their worth here, using their industrial equipment to disable the shipyard's defenses before military vessels moved in to secure the facilities. Again, surrender came quickly when faced with overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. Across 15 star systems, the pattern repeated. Human forces appeared as if from nowhere, demonstrated complete tactical superiority, and accepted surrender while treating prisoners with dignity. Each victory was transmitted instantly to all other human forces, maintaining perfect coordination across hundreds of light years. On the 5th day of the operation, Admiral Stone received an unexpected communication. Veltar, Supreme Commander of the Shadow Syndicate, requested a meeting. The aliens' reptilian features showed none of the arrogance that had characterized their previous transmissions. Admiral Stone, Veltar began, the Syndicate wishes to discuss terms for ending this conflict. There are no terms, Stone replied. You initiated hostilities by murdering 450,000 human civilians. We are simply ensuring it doesn't happen again. Your response is disproportionate, Veltar said carefully. 1 colony for 15 military installations. The Galactic Council will see this as aggression. Stone leaned forward in her command chair. Let me explain something about humans that your intelligence clearly missed. We don't fight wars for territory or resources. We fight wars to protect our families. Every human who died on Haven's Rest was someone's child, parent, sibling, or friend. You didn't attack a colony. You attacked our family. The alien commander's compound eyes widened as he began to understand the implications. Furthermore, Stone continued, you made a critical error in your planning. You assumed that humanity would respond like other species in the Galactic Council. You expected us to file protests, request investigations, and eventually accept the loss as the price of expansion into hostile territory. Veltar remained silent, but his body language suggested growing unease. What you fail to understand is that humans don't accept the unacceptable, Stone said. When faced with extinction, we don't negotiate. We don't compromise. We adapt, we unify, and we overcome. Your attack wasn't just an assault on Haven's Rest. It was a declaration of war against the concept that humans have a right to exist in this galaxy. The communication ended, but its impact rippled across the galaxy. Within hours, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. Species that had never shown interest in human affairs suddenly wanted to discuss trade agreements. The Zephyrian government issued formal apologies and offered reparations. But the most significant change was in how other species viewed humanity. The quiet colonists who grew food and conducted research were revealed to possess an industrial and military capacity that had been hidden in plain sight. The converted civilian ships in the human fleet demonstrated that every human settlement was a potential military asset if threatened. Dr. James Chen, who had survived Haven's Rest and joined the fleet as a medical advisor, summarized the situation in a report to Earth's government. We have fundamentally altered the galaxy's perception of humanity. They now understand that we are not passive colonists who can be intimidated or eliminated. We are a unified species capable of projecting power across interstellar distances when our survival is threatened. 3 months after the attack on Haven's Rest, Admiral Stone stood once again on the bridge of the Retribution. The ship was now orbiting the rebuilt colony, where survivors were returning alongside new colonists determined to honor the memory of those who had died. Captain Sarah Mitchell, promoted to colonel for her actions during and after the attack, joined Stone on the observation deck. Together, they watched as construction ships worked to rebuild New Geneva, this time with defensive systems that incorporated lessons learned from Project Constellation. The Shadow Syndicate has formally dissolved, Mitchell reported. Most of their member species are requesting individual peace treaties with Earth. The Zephyrian Alliance has offered full technological cooperation as part of their reparations package. Stone nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. The real question is what we do with the power we've revealed. The galaxy knows we can project force anywhere, anytime. That kind of capability could make us the very threat the Syndicate claimed we were. Mitchell smiled grimly. That's why we're rebuilding Haven's Rest instead of occupying their worlds. We're not conquerors, Admiral. We're gardeners who happen to be very good at removing weeds when necessary. The conversation was interrupted by a communication from Earth. President Maria Santos appeared on the screen, her expression showing the satisfaction of a leader who had successfully protected her people while maintaining their values. Admiral Stone, Colonel Mitchell, I'm pleased to inform you that the Galactic Council has unanimously approved the Human Protection Doctrine, Santos announced. Any unprovoked attack on human civilians will be considered an attack on all humanity, with response authorized at the discretion of Earth's government. The doctrine was unprecedented in galactic history. No single species had ever been granted such broad authority to act in self-defense. But then, no single species had ever demonstrated the combination of military capability and restraint that humanity had shown during Operation Starfall. As the communication ended, Stone and Mitchell returned to watching the reconstruction of Haven's Rest. The colony would rise again, stronger and better defended than before. More importantly, it would serve as a symbol of humanity's new position in the galaxy. They had been tested by those who believed humans could be frightened into submission. Instead, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their absolute refusal to abandon each other, no matter the cost. The galaxy had thought Earth would mourn quietly. Instead, they had learned that when humans mourned, the sky itself became their instrument of justice. And in that revelation, a new age of respect and cooperation among the stars was born.